Are you able to hear the sound now? Is my screen visible? Okay, we'll start in just 2 minutes now. So as you know, we have divided this entire session into two parts. Number one, we will be talking about the basic compliances which are related to recommendation as well as the website. And the second part would be on your question and answer. I have received around 30 question on my Google form. So I'll be taking around 27 to 28 questions, and rest couple of questions are related to KYC, for which I'll be doing a separate session. So basically, the entire compliance is divided into three parts. Number one, client related compliances. Number two, recommendation related compliances. And number three, other regulatory compliances. So we will be doing three sessions over the next 3 weeks. So this session is only related to the recommendation related compliance. And next week, we will take the client related compliances and what to do and what not to do. And thereafter, the last session would be on other regulation related compliances, any XYZ regulation which has come up through circular or through regulations. So, and I also have my colleagues, Mr. CA Rohit Tendulkar, as well as CA Dinesh Sharma. Both are qualified CA with rich experience of over 10 years now. And I myself is a chartered accountant in LB with over around 15 years of experience in compliance. So, so basically, I'll be starting from very basics, and then we will move on to the intricacy of compliances as to why the RA is getting hit by recommendation compliances. So basically, we have taken out every rule from regulation, circulars, as well as the orders which have been passed in last 6 to 7 months. So we will be talking about those orders as well, and what the SEBI and SEBI officers have observed in those orders, and how you can comply with those regulations just to not get caught in by the SEBI officers on this. So let's start. So first of all, let us understand what is an RA. Okay, this is the basic stuff. Who is a research analyst? A research analyst is anybody who is providing research services. The moment you are providing research services on any stock, you are a research analyst. Whether you are registered or not registered, if you are not registered, definitely you are doing illegal research services. And if you are registered, you would be a legal research analyst. That's the only difference. The moment you term it yourself as a research analyst in stock market, you are a research analyst. So SEBI has very categorically said to all the fin influencer that if you are providing any research services or talking about any stock, you need to get yourself registered as a research analyst. That is your power. Okay. So all the research analysts who are sitting here or who are attending this session, they are all powerful because they have been given exclusive power to talk about stocks. That's your biggest USP in the market. Now, when we are talking about the research analyst, what kind of services they are providing. Okay, so these are the services which they can provide as a research analyst. And out of these, I have highlighted two things. Number one, making buy, sell, and hold recommendation and giving price targets and stop loss. Why I have highlighted only these two, I'll talk about later, because there are regulations which I'm going to talk about, and then I will highlight how SEBI has taken these two specifically as research analyst services and how they have penalized a lot of research analysts on these two things. Okay. So, and this is the major part of your work. When you are doing or when you are working as a research analyst, the major part of your work, more than 90-95% is this one only. Rest are a smaller part. Model portfolio have recently been introduced. So we are not going to talk about model portfolio. We will have a separate session on model portfolio. Trading calls, buy, sell, hold recommendation, as well as giving price target and stop loss. These are all part of your major work. So you need to keep this in mind. And we are going to talk about these two specifically. Now, moving on, what is a proper recommendation? So we have understood that our recommendation should have two things. Number one, buy, sell, hold recommendation, and number two, price target and stop loss. So either of one or both. Your recommendation must have at least one element of this, either buy, sell, hold, and price target and stop loss target, right? A lot of questions I have received whereby some of the RAs have asked me that what should be in a research recommendation. So one part of research recommendation should have either one of this or both things in your research recommendation. Either you give a recommendation as buy, sell, hold, or give a price target or a stop loss or entry price. That's what it is. Now we are coming on to the regulation and what kind of regulation are applicable for research recommendation. So this session is only on research recommendation. So I am only talking about the regulation which are applicable to recommendation only. We are not talking about any client related regulation. We are not talking about any other regulation. We are only talking about the specific regulation and sub regulation which are related for recommendation part only. Okay. So regulation number 25, you need to maintain 4 records. The total, there are 8 records which has to be maintained under regulation 25. But out of those 8 records, 4 records are exclusively related with recommendation. Number one, you need to maintain a research report which has to be signed and dated. Both signed and dated. When you are signing it, make sure the recommendation signing date has to be either on the date of recommendation or before the date of recommendation, not after the date of recommendation. For example, if you are given any recommendation on 1st February, then recommendation report has to be signed on either on 1st on February or before 1st of February, but not after 1st of February. This is amply clear. This is a compliance means if you are dating it post the recommendation date. Second is research recommendation, provided you need to maintain a rationale or a backup, any kind of documentary evidence that you should have for any recommendation. Now, there are two specific sets of questions that I've received. Number one, what a recommendation report should look like for an intraday player and what a recommendation report should look like for a swing player or maybe a long-term player. I'll talk about later when I'll talk about regulation number 18. Then I'll talk about that in detail. Now, and you need to maintain a record of public appearances. So your life revolves around two things. You give recommendation at two places, either to your WhatsApp channel or Telegram channel or on your website or any other mode of communication which is completely controlled and controlled by you, and you are giving recommendation there. Number two is on the public appearance. Either you are appearing on the media or any news channel or on YouTube or any other social media channel. These are all public appearances. So we'll going into detail on these two, because for recording a record maintenance for a recommendation is different from record maintenance for public appearances. There are slightly a few points which are completely different for each other. Now, note down this regulation. This is your जिसे कहते हैं ना, ये आपके गले पे लटकी हुई तलवार है। रेगुलेशन नंबर 18 सब रेगुलेशन 7 मेक्स डॉक्यूमेंट्री प्रूफ इज अ मस्ट। Manish Goyal, research analyst case has been highlighted on regulation number 18.7. For few recommendation, he hasn't maintained any documentary proof when SEBI had inspected him. At that point in time, they specifically highlighted regulation number 18.7. I'll talk about this just from a while now. 18.7 regulation specifically states that for any research recommendation, you need to have a documentary proof, you need to have a logic, you need to have a rationale on whatsoever methodology you have derived that. It doesn't matter, but it has to be there, and there is no requirement to share it with your client. I'm again highlighting this. There are a lot of confusion in this. 18.7 only talks about that you need to maintain your documentary proof. That's it. Finish. You need not share this rationale or documentary proof or any kind of methodology with your client. There is no such requirement in regulation. You need to have rationale and documentary proof. That's it. These are the requirements. इसके अलावा आपको कोई शेयर करने की जरूरत नहीं है अपने क्लाइंट के साथ कि आपने कौन सा लॉजिक लगाया, आपकी ऑप्शन की स्ट्रैटेजी क्या थी, या आपका जो रिकमेंडेशन निकालने का क्वांटिटेटिव मेथड या क्वालिटेटिव मेथड था वो क्या था. देर इज नो रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ शेयरिंग. ओके. सो मनीष गोयल केस मेक्स इट amply clear that 18.7 regulation is only for documentary proof and not for sharing. Now, compliance which are related to research recommendations and research reports. So when we talk about research report and recommendation, there is only few differences between a research report and a recommendation, but the compliances for research report and recommendation both are same. Okay, so research report is, you must have seen any kind of broker report. Those are commercially accepted format. SEBI has not specified any format for research report. Okay, you can make your research report in any format, but commercially accepted formats, you can see through your broker research report or any other commercial research report that you see in the market. And recommendation format is also not specified by SEBI as such, but there are certain requirements which has to be there in your research report as well as in your recommendation. So SEBI has only specified 3 or 4 points which must be put in your research report as well as in your recommendation, but there is no set format or standard template for any research report or any recommendation. Now, these are the regulations which are specifically applicable to your research reports as well as your research activities and your recommendations. Regulation 16, Regulation 18, 19, 20, and 21. Regulation 16 and 18 are talking about your trading activities. 19, 20, and 21 are talking about your public appearances and mandatory, I'm again saying mandatory disclosures in your research report and recommendations. So 19 and 20 talks about the mandatory disclosures and 21 talks about your public appearance records. So now we are going into detail of regulation 16, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Regulation 16 and 18 are applicable to your trading related activities, which means 16 is applicable, which specifies your 30 and 5 days rule. So 30 days before and 5 days after is under regulation 16. So you cannot trade the security which you have recommended before 30 days and after 5 days from the date of recommendation. That's the rule under regulation 16. Now, there is a specific query I have received few days back, and this is very interesting query. You must understand, and this will actually clarify everything in your mind as to how this is seen from a 30 days perspective and 5 days perspective. I'm going to talk about that query specifically with you. So this is what it is. Date of recommendation 30 days before and 5 days after. That's the rule, that you cannot trade same security 30 days before and 5 days after. 35 days rule is this one. Now, read this case specifically. This is the query I have received, and I just read it for you. If I buy the same security after 5 days and target has increased. So, for example, I have recommended a security, okay, on one particular date. After 5 days, once the statutory period of 5 days of no trading has been lapsed, thereafter, I have bought that security in my account. Fair, I can buy that as per regulation. But somehow, after 5 days, something has changed and which has prompted me to increase the target price. Okay. After 5 days, when I have acquired. Now, will that 30 days rule be applicable on this or not? Just give me any answer in the chat box. I'll understand that you have understood this query or not. Will this 30 days rule be applicable or not? Yes or no? So most of the answers I have received yes, which means that you people understand that any increase or decrease in the target price or any price point which I have already specified will be considered as a new recommendation, and it will also have 30 days rule applicable on me. So if you see this timeline, so this is what it is. After 5 days, when I buy this or my associate buy this, then that 30 days rule will be prompted. Now, in that case, I'll be stuck because I need to give a fresh recommendation for this new price target when the price target has increased. So I'll be caught by 30 days, 5 days rule. So I mean, avoid this situation, better not to trade in the securities that you have recommended, or better not be tempted to trade in these kind of securities. This would be like a two-way sword, that once you buy, anything happened and that opportunity becomes very lucrative and you are tempted to buy that, you will be stuck in 30 days, 5 days rule, because the next recommendation, although with the same security, will have an updated price point, then it will be treated as a new recommendation and the record has to be maintained for that recommendation. Since it's new and record has to be maintained, 30 days, 5 days rule will be applicable completely on that update on the same security. So I think this point will be amply clear that regulation 16 can catch you anytime if you are trading in the same security. And now we are coming on to the most important thing, hand holding part, which is somewhere related to regulation 16 and 18, right? See, hand holding, when I talk about Abhishek's case, in that case, two things are highlighted. Number one, now understand this point, that you have recommended something and you have given the price point, the entry price, the stop loss price, and the target price. Okay. Regulation says that in case of significant change in any event or any significant news, you can revise your prices, either the target price or the stop loss price. That is absolutely allowed. But that revised price and revised target or stop loss will be treated as an update to the existing security, and you need to maintain the record why you have changed the price. So you need to have that logic, which means you need to maintain the record for the updated price as well. And that updated price point and updated rationale will be as an addendum to the existing recommendation with a new price, new recommendation date and new price points. So which means although it is related with the older recommendation, but because of significant change in news and events, it has, the price point has changed. Then you need to maintain the updated record for this. So there are a lot of questions on this, that if I provide any kind of update, will it be treated as hand holding? No, it will not be treated as a hand holding, because you're if you are maintaining the record and if you are giving that as a new update or new recommendation, then it will not be a hand holding. But in case you have given any recommendation and you said, okay, entry is this, my stop loss is say 100 rupees and my target is say 200 rupees. And the moment that security is hitting 200 rupees, and at that very moment, you are sending the price or you're sending the update to the client, okay, exit now. That is called handholding. If you are doing any extra activity with regards to the price points which you have already provided to the customer, then it will be handholding. I can understand and I can very well empathize with the people who are doing FNOs and who are doing index trading or index options. The price changes in an instant and you need to update your customer. Please, this kind of pampering to your customer will land you in very big trouble, because that is considered to be handholding, because you are providing follow up to the older recommendation for which you have already provided the price point. But if you are updating those price point and sending it to the customer and maintaining the record, then it is not handholding. I hope I'm amply clear on this, that if you are giving the hand holding on follow up without changing any price point, with the same price point you are updating anything, you will be in hand holding position. And in case you are providing any update on price, right, and sending an update and maintaining the record of that update, then it will not be hand holding. So there is a very fine line difference in these two scenarios. And especially for option, the people who are providing option calls or the FNO calls, for them it has to be dealt with very carefully, that if you are providing updates, then it is not handholding if the price point is updated. If you are providing updates but it is related to the older price point itself, then it is handholding. So I have specifically written it that any change in the price parameter shall be updated to existing. Record maintenance is must. That is not handholding. Okay, that's what it is. Now, regulation 16 means that trading limitation of 30 days and 5 days is not applicable if there is any significant change in news or any event. Regulation 16 specifically specify that you can trade, but there has to be very significant change in news. Any significant news has happened or any event has happened, in that case, that rule of 30 days, 5 days is not applicable. But unfortunately, they have also specified that you can do this only if you have taken the approval of SEBI for your internal policies and procedures. आपको याद होगा जब आपने आरए का रजिस्ट्रेशन करवाया था, उस टाइम पे आपने सेबी को इंटरनल पॉलिसी एंड प्रोसीजर सबमिट करे थे. आई एम नॉट श्योर कि उसमें आपने सिक्योरिटीज की ट्रेडिंग के बारे में लिखा था या नहीं लिखा था. मोस्ट ऑफ देम आर कॉपीड एंड पेस्टेड एंड सबमिटेड टू सेबी. सो आई डोंट थिंक सो कि उसमें ऐसा कुछ लिखा होगा. आपको 30 डेज 5 डेज रूल नहीं लगता अगर आपने ये प्रोसीजर सिक्योरिटी में ट्रेड करने का अपने इंटरनल पॉलिसी या प्रोसीजर्स के अंदर लिख के और सेबी को सबमिट करा होता और सेबी ने उसको एक्सेप्ट कर लिया होता. ओके, सो दी ये जो दो केसेस हैं रेगुलेशन 16 के, इसके अंदर 30 डेज 5 डेज का रूल एप्लीकेबल नहीं होता है. Coming on to the regulation 18, again, it is on your trading limitation, but it is specifically applicable to IPOs. So for IPOs, and this is only applicable in case an IPO has happened or a research analyst has acted in the same company in the capacity of a manager or a co-manager. Means उसने जिस कंपनी का आईपीओ आ रहा है उसी कंपनी के साथ मैनेजर या को मैनेजर ऐसे काम करा हो उस आईपीओ पे या उस आईपीओ से रिलेटेड किसी भी सिग्निफिकेंट इवेंट के अंदर, then this rule will be applicable that such RA who has acted as manager or co-manager for the subject company, for those IPO they cannot recommend. And recommendation का जो timeline है वो है 40 days from the date of listing, which means कि if you are recommended, if you have worked as a manager or co-manager for the same company for which the IPO has happened, you cannot recommend that security for 40 days from the date of listing. And if any follow-up has happened from the 10 days of that follow-up public offer. So this is another trading limitation on you. Now, regulation 18 Now, I'm coming on to the significant part. There are very specific regulation on which lot of cases has happened with SEBI on Regulation 18, right? Regulation 18 is the Bible of the entire regulation. Understand this very carefully. In Regulation 18, Sub-Regulation 4, when we are talking about Regulation 18, Sub-Regulation 4 specifically talks about three things with which RA cannot associate because they are in the nature of soliciting business. Okay, अभी हमने बात करी थी कि आरए क्या कर सकता है और क्या नहीं कर सकता। एडिशनल एक्टिविटीज की बहुत सारी बातें चल रही हैं काफी सारे ग्रुप्स के अंदर कि वो क्या एजुकेशन कर सकता है, क्या वो सब ब्रोकरशिप ले सकता है, क्या वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशनशिप ले सकता है या नहीं। एजुकेशन पे स्पेसिफिक गाइडलाइंस है, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन पे भी स्पेसिफिक गाइडलाइंस है, लेकिन सब ब्रोकरशिप बिजनेस पे या ब्रोकरशिप बिजनेस पे कोई स्पेसिफिक गाइडलाइन नहीं है। लेकिन रेगुलेशन 18 और सब रेगुलेशन 4 इसके बारे में स्पेसिफिकली बात करता है दैट इन एनी आरए कैन नॉट एसोसिएटेड विथ थ्री एक्टिविटीज। नंबर वन, इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकिंग, नंबर टू, मर्चेंट बैंकिंग, एंड नंबर थ्री, brokerage service business. It is clearly written that if you are seeking any business for any brokerage house, it is not allowed under regulation 18.4. Simple. It is period. Okay, after that regulation 18.7 that we talked about earlier also, that 18.7 is another thing which you should have in your mind, that every recommendation has to have a documentary proof whether you are an option player or you are a swing player or a long term player. आप जो भी मेंटेन करो, चाहे वो एक लाइन का रैशनल हो, डजेंट मैटर, बट यू नीड टू हैव अ रैशनल विद यू रेडी। आप ये कर सकते हो, जो ऑप्शनल प्लेयर है हो सकता है कि वो एक दिन के अंदर पांच पांच या छः छः कॉल्स दे रहा हो, राइट? तो आप डेट वाइज उन पांचों कॉल्स को क्लब करके आप अपनी मेथोडोलॉजी या कोई भी रैशनल उन पांचों के लिए दे सकते हो एक साथ। आपको पांचों के लिए मेंटेन करने की जरूरत नहीं है। दिस इज ओनली फॉर द प्लेयर who are into intraday recommendation और option recommendations. So उनके लिए आप डेट वाइज उनको एक्यूमुलेट कर लो और डेट वाइज एक्यूमुलेट करने के बाद आप रैशनल दे दो। इट विल सफाइस बिकॉज आपको साइनिंग डेट वाइज करनी है, राइट? आप ऐसा नहीं कर सकते कि एक महीने की पूरी आपने क्लब करी और उसके बाद आपने इसका आगे एक बार साइन करा महीने के एंड में, वो नहीं हो सकता। ठीक है, ये मीटिंग अभी 10 मिनट्स में ओवर हो जाएगी और इसके बाद हमारा Q&A का सेशन है, बट मैं इसके अंदर दो रेगुलेशन और बचे हुए हैं, वो मैं फटाफट क्विकली कवर करके आगे हम बढ़ेंगे। ठीक है, तो आप मीटिंग 2 ज्वाइन कर लेना इसके बाद, और मीटिंग 2 में भी हम ये थोड़ा सा पार्ट ये करके उसके बाद हम जो आपके Q&A हैं वो हम ले लेंगे। ठीक है, चैट में मेरे पास जो क्वेश्चन आ रहे हैं मोस्टली मैं इसमें कवर हो जाएंगे आपके पास। जितने भी क्वेश्चंस आप मेरे को चैट में भेज रहे हो मोस्टली आपके कवर हो जाएंगे Q&A सेशन के अंदर। ओके, सो 18.7 यू नीड टू कीप इन योर माइंड दैट यू नीड टू हैव डॉक्यूमेंट्री प्रूफ। ऑप्शन प्लेयर्स के लिए और इंट्राडे प्लेयर्स के लिए मैंने स्पेसिफिकली बता दिया कि आप उसको डेट वाइज क्लब करके एक रैशनल बना के पांचों रिकमेंडेशन का दे सकते हो, उसमें कोई इशू नहीं है। जो स्विंग वाले हैं, लॉन्ग टर्म वाले हैं, उनके पास तो जो रिकमेंडेशन है वो हफ्ते में एक या दो या पाँच 10 जा रही हैं, तो उसके लिए डेट वाइज रिकॉर्ड मेंटेन करना बहुत ईजी काम है। और उसके अंदर भी आपको रैशनल तो ज़रूर मेंटेन करना है। आपका लॉजिक रैशनल, जो भी मेथोडोलॉजी आप यूज़ कर रहे हो या जो भी स्ट्रैटेजी यूज़ कर रहे हो, कोई भी चीज़ रैशनल हो सकती है, बट इट हैज़ टू बी लॉजिकली डिफाइंड इन योर रिसर्च रिपोर्ट। दैट इज द ओनली रिक्वायरमेंट एंड द मेन इंपॉर्टेंट रिक्वायरमेंट, दैट यू नीड टू हैव अ डॉक्यूमेंट्री प्रूफ। अगर आपके पास रिकमेंडेशन का रैशनल नहीं है, देन यू आर इन नॉन कंप्लायंट विद रेगुलेशन 18.7। एंड यही मैंने अभी आगे हाईलाइट किया था, ये मनीष गोयल के केस के अंदर काफ़ी प्रोमिनेंटली हाईलाइट हुआ था कि आपने शेयर नहीं करना क्लाइंट के साथ, आप शेयर मत करो, लेकिन आपके पास डॉक्यूमेंट्री प्रूफ होना चाहिए। और मनीष के केस में इफ आई करेक्टली रिमेंबर दैट उसने सिर्फ 19 रिकमेंडेशन में 16 का रिकॉर्ड मेंटेन नहीं किया था। सी, इट वाज वेरी स्मॉल क्वांटम ऑफ रिकमेंडेशंस, 19 में से 16 का रैशनल मेंटेन नहीं हुआ था। स्टिल सेबी हैज इम्पोज्ड फाइन। सो आप सोच लो कि अगर आपने 10 रिकमेंडेशन दिए और उसमें से आपने 3 का मेंटेन नहीं किया रैशनल, तब भी आपको सेबी पकड़ लेगी। Right. So as I said, no need to share it with the clients, only need to maintain documentary proof. Now, रेगुलेशन नंबर 19, रेगुलेशन 19 जो है वो एक मैंडेटरी रेगुलेशन है। इसके अंदर 3 सब पार्ट है। रेगुलेशन 19 1 2 एंड 3। 1 और 2 जो एप्लीकेबल हैं वो आपकी रिसर्च रिपोर्ट और रिकमेंडेशन पे एप्लीकेबल हैं। कि आपकी रिसर्च रिपोर्ट में, रिकमेंडेशन रिपोर्ट में आपका ये डिस्क्रिप्शन होना चाहिए। या तो आप अपनी वेबसाइट पे एक लिंक बना लो और उसी लिंक को आप अपनी रिसर्च रिपोर्ट में और रिकमेंडेशन में दे दो, या सोशल मीडिया पे पोस्ट पे दे दो। जहां जहां पे आपकी प्रेजेंस है, चाहे वो सोशल मीडिया हो, चाहे वो रिकमेंडेशन हो, चाहे वो रिसर्च रिपोर्ट हो, चाहे आप अपना किसी भी न्यूज़ चैनल पे आ रहे हो, आपको ये लिंक या ये जो डिस्क्रिप्शन है रेगुलेशन 19 के अंदर, ये आपको स्पेसिफिकली हाईलाइट करना है। ये मैंडेटरी डिस्क्रिप्शन है, इसको आप अवॉइड नहीं कर सकते। अब मैं यहाँ पे आपको एक चीज़ और क्लियर कर देता हूँ। दो बातें हैं, डिस्क्लेमर, डिस्क्लोजर। डिस्क्लोजर जो है वो रेगुलेशन नंबर 19 के अंदर कवर होते हैं, डिस्क्लेमर कहीं पर भी कवर नहीं होता। डिस्क्लेमर एक गुड प्रैक्टिस है, दैट स्टॉक्स आर सब्जेक्ट टू मार्केट रिस्क एंड एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा करके जो डिस्क्लेमर आप देते हैं, डिस्क्लेमर मैंडेटरी नहीं है, बट वो एक गुड प्रैक्टिस है टू मेक योर क्लाइंट अवेयर अबाउट द रिस्क ऑफ स्टॉक मार्केट। ठीक है, सेबी उस पर उतना फोकस नहीं करता जितना वो फोकस करता है डिस्क्लोजर पे। सो बेटर, मेरा आपसे ये रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप जो डिस्क्लोजर दे रहे हैं, डिस्क्लोजर के अंदर ही आप डिस्क्लेमर को भी इनकॉर्पोरेट कर लें, और वही लिंक आप अपनी रिकमेंडेशन और रिसर्च रिपोर्ट के अंदर दे दें। सो दैट विल बी ओके फॉर फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ कंप्लायंस। ओके, सो जो डिस्क्लेमर है, डिस्क्लेमर मैंडेटरी नहीं है, बट रेगुलेशन 19 का जो डिस्क्लोजर है वो मैंडेटरी है। दिस इज डिस्क्लोजर अंडर आरए रेगुलेशन। ये आपको करना पड़ेगा रिसर्च रिपोर्ट में, रिकमेंडेशन पे, सोशल मीडिया पोस्ट पे और पब्लिक अपीयरेंस पे। जहां जहां आप अपीयर होंगे एज अ रिसर्च एनालिस्ट, यू नीड टू गिव रेगुलेशन 19 डिस्क्लोजर। देर इज नो इफ एंड बट इन दिस। ओके, अब इस रेगुलेशन 19 के अंदर आपको क्या क्या देना है, ठीक है, ये एक स्टैंडर्ड टेम्पलेट है जो रेगुलेशन 19 रेगुलेशन के अंदर लिखा ही हुआ है। तो आप सिंपल वहां से कॉपी कर सकते हो, अपना डिस्क्रिप्शन उसके अकॉर्डिंग लिख के आप अपना एक वेबसाइट का लिंक बना सकते हो, और वो लिंक आप यूज कर सकते हो। आपके बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन होनी चाहिए, आपकी बिजनेस एक्टिविटी के बारे में, करंट बिजनेस एक्टिविटी के बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन होनी चाहिए, डिसिप्लिनरी हिस्ट्री, अगर कोई आपके पास केस हुआ है सेबी की तरफ से तो उसका आपको देना है डिस्क्रिप्शन। टर्म्स एंड कंडीशन, जिस रिसर्च रिपोर्ट की टर्म्स एंड कंडीशन अगर कोई है, ये मैं सर्कुलर 8 जनवरी के टर्म्स एंड कंडीशन की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, ये रिसर्च एंड रिपोर्ट की कोई टर्म्स एंड कंडीशन स्पेसिफिक हैं आपके बिजनेस से रिलेटेड, तो वो आप यहाँ पे मेंशन कर सकते हैं। डिटेल ऑफ एसोसिएट्स, आरए, क्या किसी जो इस कंपनी के बारे में आप बोल रहे हो, क्या उस कंपनी का कोई ऑफिसर या एम्प्लॉय रहा है, या उसकी कोई मार्केट मेकिंग एक्टिविटीज रही हैं आरए की, या अब जो 8th पॉइंट है, यूज ऑफ एआई टूल, ये अभी इस साल एडिशन हुआ है, दैट यू नीड टू ऑल्सो गिव द डिस्क्लोजर अबाउट द एक्सटेंट ऑफ एआई टूल दैट यू आर यूजिंग फॉर योर रिसर्च services. Okay, and last information that you need to give about your ownership and material conflict of interest and receipt of compensation. ये 9 के 9 रिकॉर्ड आपके मैंडेटरी डिस्क्लोजर्स हैं, ये आपको देना जरूरी है। या तो आप इसको एज अ डिस्क्रिप्टिव पीडीएफ की तरह दे दो, जो कि आपकी 2 पेजेस में बनेगी, या हो सकता है 2 से 3 पेजेस में बने। और बेटर ऑप्शन ये है कि आप इसका एक वेब लिंक बनवा लो, और वेब लिंक के थ्रू आप इसको जहां जहां आप प्रेजेंट होते हो, आप उसको एज अ डिस्क्लोज कर दो। चाहे जितनी भी सोशल मीडिया पोस्ट आती हैं, ट्विटर के नीचे आप अपनी पोस्ट के नीचे डालो, जो आपका यूट्यूब चैनल है उसके डिस्क्रिप्शन में आप डालो, राइट। अपनी प्रोफाइल जहाँ पे भी इंस्टाग्राम है आपका, वहाँ पे अपनी प्रोफाइल के अंदर आप दे दो, जो पोस्ट बना रहे हो आप उसके अंदर दे दो। ये हर जगह पे होना चाहिए, ठीक है। सो अभी मैं ये मीटिंग एंड कर रहा हूँ मैनुअली, और इसके बाद मैं दूसरी मीटिंग स्टार्ट कर रहा हूँ। आई होप टू सी यू ऑल देयर, राइट। मैं अगले 10 मिनट के अंदर ये प्रेजेंटेशन खत्म कर रहा हूँ, देन विल टेक द Q&A सेशन। थैंक यू सो मच।